Hey everyone, this is Carla from Time Pour with Carla and Friends. I had to remember what show it is. And we are here to explore our minds and make our minds grow bigger. And my mind seems so full of ideas now, I don't even know what to say. But
Take a long weekend.
Oh, I will. I will take Friday and Saturday away from any live stream possible unless I feel I want to go live about something. But I won't be talking to anyone like I do every day. Anyway, for that reason, we are going to get this started. Life came up with an idea and it sounds like a good idea. I have no idea what it's about. So, Life, begin, please.
Thank you. Thank you. And happy Thursday to all of you. Not happy Thursday, but Thursday.
Yeah.
Happy Thursday, Life. Happy Thursday, Cameron. I can't even say it anymore. Happy Thursday, Raheem. Okay.
So I somehow it struck me that perhaps we, as we talk about consciousness and those dimensions, we should add the research from Greece and Socrates, as well as modern research in Japan on phronesis. And phronesis is simply translated practical wisdom. And Professor Nonaka has applied it very much into development of industries in Japan, which is very interesting. So you go from the old Greece to modern management in Japan on phronesis. And it triggers me, could it be that somewhere in this conversation we have about consciousness, that if we stretch a little bit, uploading, as we said yesterday and the day before, we are getting closer and closer to the phronesis. But if we get to phronesis, we probably might have to separate from abstract phronesis to practical dimensions of it. I don't know. This is just an intro for our mind flooring of today.
Yes, this is very interesting because as I told you, I was unfamiliar with this term, and just in 2 minutes I just Googled it, and this is something very interesting because actually this is what we are up to, I guess, because Socrates defines it, and I'm actually reading it, quoting it. Phronesis is the very essence of virtue and what it means to be a good person. He believed, I mean, the Socrates believed that phronesis was the most important attribute of all to learn. So, so this phronesis, and I am amused to know that this has been actually implemented in some way in Japan. So the point is that the current sort of crisis in which we are, and perhaps this is the first of its kind, which has actually impacted us globally and has given us some sort of a global unification feeling. I don't know if it remains, it persists or not, but God forbid if this kind of a crisis or some other crises come in multitudes, one after the other, uh, this phronesis then will become more and more important, because it is very simple when we say to be a good person, but then what are the attributes of a good person? And then this goodness, uh, is it an absolute value or is it relative? Because in various cultures I've seen that uh, goodness, uh, it actually varies in concept between people, from people to people, from culture to culture, even from community to community in a small system. So what is a good person to start with? and what is goodness to start with? Because in order to understand phronesis, we need to understand what is that goodness all about, what is a virtue, and how can then it be, it can flourish in a capitalistic society, because this is what we are inadvertently dealing with right now in this world. And unless that we go into a quantum leap into a new spiritual consciousness sort of a thing, this capitalistic system is going to prevail. And the only problem with this system is that it counts, it quantifies rather than qualifies. So, and that is the essence of capitalism as well as democracy. I'm not against capitalism, I'm not against democracy, but I am against uh, counting head rather than qualifying, counting the qualities of people, but we count heads and not the qualities. So this pronesis seems to be the answer in fact, to this, at least this intellectual query, that and since it is being practiced in, at least in Japan. And by the
Mhm.
way, I don't know if our viewers know this or not, that Japan is actually one of the most developed and advanced intellectual uh, systems, which they are actually bringing into their businesses and into their, that the first time it was the zero inventory concept was given in Japan. And actually because, anyway, we can say a lot about Japan, but the point is that what is goodness and how can this be transformed into a general virtue of the society? I think this is the question to be discussed.
And it comes very close to the meaning making. If you are doing good, you are actually adding to the meaning making. But coming back to, if you want to learn more about modern aspects of uh, the phronesis, you can Google on Nonaka, Nonaka, and he is a very senior professor in Japan, and he has been working very much together with Noboru Kono, and they are jointly developing the concept Society 5.0 for the Cabinet's Office of Japan. And it's very interesting if you in Society 5.0 have those dimensions of phronesis and what you're just talking about, the virtues of society. So that might lead to a very different educational system as well. Instead of transactions, we should focus on some other parts of it, because what we measure and account for, as you said, is transactions. And those transactions have either a plus or minus. But if you take the phronesis and the making good, it's a multiplier function. So it's not an additive function. So it's a totally different metric system, which means that the old accounting system is becoming more and more obsolete to measure and score nations. So we are on the edge to something very interesting. And now I would like to hear our youngsters. What do you say about phronesis?
Yeah. So I think that the best part I like is that, you know, the Socrates is definition. The best part I like is that this is the most important attribute of you know, all of learning. So you need this for learning. This is really important. And also adding up to what Sir Cameron said, that, you know, uh, Japan is a country where people are very intellectually developed, and they're really into you know, intellectual developing. So, you know, only the communities, what I think is that only the communities that are really, really intellectually developed then they succeed. You see, Japan almost like even the car that I travel on is from Japan. So that is how much Japan is used in my house. And that's in all the households these days, almost all, you could say. And it's really important for our society to see how they could improve their intellectual development. And phronesis, if I'm pronouncing it correct, is also really important, you know, because learning is important. And if this is one of the most important attributes, then it is, of course, it's supposed to be important. So that is my part so far, but I've been listening because I've been using my mind way too far today.
But that's why we have this conversation, to see how we navigate with what we don't know yet, and how we learn from our conversation. And I do think that this work of phronesis in Japan has resulted in this Society 5.0, which you can Google on and find out what characterizes the Society 5.0. And for that, we probably also need to develop further conversation. What is it in there that is so interesting? Because the traditional way of seeing it is that we are leaving industry 3.0 and moving into a more computerized society. But that is just a transition. We are probably heading to what Kamran has pointed towards. We're going into another state, another perception of the quantum physics or the quantum science. And that will be extremely interesting to find the taxonomy, to be able to describe it, and how you can go to a mind gym as well as you go to breakfast.
And talking about mind gym or what we're doing, we need to keep in mind, although we may all have the general same thinking, none of us think alike. We all think differently depending on our perceptions and what we have lived through in our life. The words have different meaning.
So what I referred to was that for many people, it's an exercise in the morning to have some gymnastics. And in Sweden, we call it active age for people in my age group to do some exercises, because it has an impact on the way you think. But you also have traditional breakfast with coffee and some other stuff, and or tea. So what is the recipe for Mindplore or brain gym of phronesis?
I don't know. Maybe Cameron had some thoughts on that.
Yes, I'm I'm constantly thinking, because and I just googled this Professor Nonaka, and I'll study his work, but his primarily the knowledge management is something very critical at this point in time, because this world is now going to change. Uh, because now it is, I think it is at a point where even if they don't like, many of the corporations, many of the governments will have to think, once this affair of corona is over, that what went wrong. Because unless one is a position to realize that what has been happening in history, gradually it has been building upon on certain wrong footings. Because otherwise, I feel at times surprised that we as humans have developed so much, especially in the last 100 years, and especially in the last 50 years or so, and then especially in the last 20 years, because when I was going to college, I did not have a mobile. I did not know what is a cell phone. And now after 20 years, I have a son who is 21 years of age, and he just can't live without a mobile. Even my daughter, she is 12. and she has to have her mobile to do her daily routine, to do her homework, to do a. So I mean, the technology is taking us to a dimension in which we are actually self locked down already, and we are not into gymming, we are not into these active exercises which can actually
Mm.
make us flourish in our thinking. So I think with the advent of technology, the negative side is that the active thought process, uh, and especially the intuitive thought process, is dying. In order to relive or to give it a rebirth again in people like Raheen, who has, mashallah, a whole life to live ahead. It is very important that we move to systems and we take guidance of people like Professor Leaf and Professor Nonika, and I am sure several others who have spent their lives in developing certain systems. We need to study those systems and we need to give our input, and then the generation of Raheen, they need to give their input, because without input, the problem is, especially what I'm pointing out, is that uh, if the generation of Raheen is too much busy in doing chatting and social media and everything. Social media is good, but to an extent. You need to be aware, but you do not need to be buried into the desert of information to an extent that you are aware of just happening what is happening digitally, but you are not aware of who lives in your neighborhood and how is he or she feeling, how is she living a life, because this is virtue, this is phronosis, this is practical goodness. And practical goodness, although it has its digital element as well, uh, I usually do not try to spread anything negative on social media. I have a certain following, and till now I haven't done any discussion on corona in my country, in my language. Lots of people have said me to do a Facebook live on corona, but I haven't, because the reason is that I want to just be positive. I do not want to scare people. I do not want to act as an alternate media source to make people scare, unless people are willing. I want to spend them another 10 days in the lockdown first, and then perhaps when you are tired and down, that is the best time, because the best time of understanding is the time of pain. there is a there is a saying in mysticism that there is no gain without pain. So by pain, it doesn't mean that I want to induce pain into people, but this pain is an automatic regenerative process. Whenever your will is being compromised, whenever your independence is being compromised, you automatically hibernate and you automatically feel the pain, and that is the best time uh, to actually convey something to a person, because he's more open, he's more receptive. His carnal desires are sort of diminished at that point. So I don't know, I'm just speaking, but I think we need to actually have a new world now. Otherwise, this is extinction. We are heading towards an extinction. May it be a society, may it be climate, may it be anything. You name any system, and it is going towards extinction just due to the lack of this phronesis. This is a good term I found.
Wonderful. This
I-
was very good.
Thank you.
Cameron, I totally agree about not doing any shows on that thing. And the reason I don't do it is because there's so much fear. There are people who are saying, all going to die, and but you need to look at the reality of what's going on, and people are not ready to do that yet. There's in such fear that they can't hear what may really be happening. Like, I have a really great expert that I want to bring to my English show. I'm kind of letting it go for a while because not because he would bring fear, he really would bring knowledge to it, but I don't think people are ready to hear that. Am I right or wrong?
Yes,
Partially
people.
right, partially wrong, because it might be a little distortion of the fear, and that is complacency. So people are complacent in their navigation to make a shift. And when you are sailing and heading for some grounds in the water, you have to make a tack. And that tack shift, of course, might usually be around 60 to 90 degrees to catch the wind. And it's the same right now. For the systems development, we may have to make a shift. And this shift needs that we get out of the complacency. And the complacency is cemented by our societal systems, which Cameron referred to as democracy. We have certain rules that we have built the society based on. And now we have to change them. And that is a challenge for the complacency, which might be more strong than the fear. Initially it's fear, but after a while it's complacency. Why should I change?
True. And I was thinking possibly next week. But, I had someone who I had to ask, can you stay one of my co-hosts? I need to ask, can you stop talking about this? Or, you don't need to be here today. And it was really hard for me to say. But I said it because I didn't want people to be scared. And I don't want to focus on this. And yes,
let's focus on the phronesis.
Yeah.
If we take that as a kind of word for our forthcoming dialogues, what can we learn from phronesis of our youngsters? What can we learn from the old people in Greece and like Socrates? And what can we learn from modern Japan?
Okay, let's see what Raheem can say about that.
Yeah, so honestly speaking, I forgot the meaning of complacency. So help.
You forgot the word?
No, I forgot the meaning. I remember I studied it in school, but now I don't remember it. Because
Practical
I didn't ever
wisdom.
use after that.
Practical wisdom.
Practical wisdom. Yeah. So now I kind of get it. So yeah, but what I think is that, when you are in pain, it's what I think is that it might not be the best time to tell anybody that. Because if I am in pain and somebody tries me telling that, I would be like, okay, you have everything else. I have my own problems. Don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me what is the problem. You don't know anything. I know everything. You're in pain and you are also angry. And you really don't want to listen to anybody at that time. So that's my point of view, but it might even be right. I
But
never
in
know.
medical, just a little note, in medical research, you have both bad pain and positive pain. So when you give birth to a kid, there are sometimes support systems that gives you positive pain. And that is very interesting from a biological viewpoint, that you can have positive pain.
Yeah. But, being stuck at your home with, with some food is not a good thing. Being stuck at home.
Not always. I disagree. Cameron, I saw your hand.
No, actually, my window of the internet freezed, so I was just raising there. Is it going? Is it going live? So-
Yeah, no,
Welcome back.
no,
I think
but
all three of you froze for a
yes,
moment there.
but Raheen, the point is that yes, obviously, it is not very welcoming if you are stuck at home. Actually, it is. Uh, we are normally upset when we don't get what we want to do. That is the primary point. If there was not a lockdown and I did not want to go out for the next 15 days, that would have been perfect. Then I would not be in pain and I would not be unhappy because it was my will to stay at home. But now, since I'm forcibly locked down, so it is not my will, it is against my will. So the point is that pain or happiness, generally people are in pain or they are in happiness due to external stimuli. But ideally, a person has to have his internal stimuli to make him happy or sad. But we have long forgotten to look into ourselves and find happiness or sorrow in ourselves. We find happiness in external things. I'll be happy if I get a lot of money. I'll be sad if somebody scolds me.
Takes, yeah.
Both are both are external factors. But I'm not happy when I'm looking inside myself and I think that, oh, there is a universe inside me waiting for a trigger and waiting for a connection, just if I stop deluding myself from the outer environment. So these five senses, these stimuli are just there to act in a given world just in order to have your responsibilities and duties fulfilled, not beyond. This is the mystic concept. And the inner senses, which are another, they say 11 or 13 senses, they are there to actually connect you with with the universe, with the cosmic consciousness. And that is phronesis. That is the kind of virtue. If one develops that thought process, it is not something magical. It is not that you have to sit in a graveyard for 40 days like this without eating, and then you will get that virtue. This is all rubbish. This is all how people make money out of these things, out of these magical systems, out of these meditations, out of these. The actual thing is here. It is given to you intellectually through your heart and through your brain. And by the way, heart is also an intellectual agent. Research has shown that heart also has neurons. Brain has billions of neurons. Heart has, up till now, 50,000 plus neurons have been discovered in the heart as well. And they communicate with the brain through your spinal cortex system. So it is an ongoing research. So my point is, coming back to my point, we have forgotten who we are. This was a famous dialogue in Lion King, that animation movie. I loved that because the small lion, when he was out and he was there, once he saw himself in the pond, and his father from the heavens, the great lion, replied that you have forgotten who you are. You are singing Hakuna Matata with with these monkeys and with these rabbits. You are a lion. You have forgotten who you are. This was the punchline of that entire movie. We have forgotten who we are. We potentially, uh, uh, perhaps we should not say it loudly, but potentially after the creator, uh, we are the biggest thing that has happened into this universe. So strong and so potentially enabled and enabling, both we are. We have forgotten who we are. We are just looking for money. My entire happiness lies in having a $3,000 iPhone. That's it. If I have this, I'm happy. And if I don't have it, I'm
So be
sad.
happy.
Sometimes I think we'd be happier without all this technology.
But excellent. Think about the following challenge. We have NASA for the exploration of the outer space. But what do we have for the inner space?
Right. And
We
that
need to build
is,
these spaces. Yes. We
And
don't have
then-
anything.
it's that time. And the inner space is what we need to grow and become more of in order for the outer space to look good to us. And maybe that's why Corona came to us and make us begin to go back and know our inner space again.
Actually, yes, we can utilize anything which is happening in this world to do this. And Corona is is a classic example because it has come with a pain. So this is what I meant, Raheen. I do not mean that we need to inflict pain on people. Pain is not a good thing, obviously. But how to utilize it to get the maximum out of oneself? Because potentials are usually at their best when they are tested to the limits. And that testing to the limit, it comes with pain. Why do these marathon runners, why do these sprinters actually, in their usual practice, they run miles and miles? Actually, in an actual Olympic, they have to run just 100 meters. But in order to have the audacity to run that with that speed to cross that 100-meter mark, you need to run miles and miles every day. So that is what I was referring to as pain. So, but I think this has been a very good discussion today. It opened
Yes.
a lot of avenues.
Do you get that, Raheen? When
Yeah, finally, I mean, I do. And I'm really, really much enjoying Mindfloor. Maybe because there's also, me coming again and again now getting the terms and the references because, for me, I need to get used to it. And I did.
and you're doing very well.
Yes.
It took a lot of work on my part to get her back, but I got her back and I'm working on a few others, but it takes a little time.
But you have to start to run according to Kamran.
Hmm. She is actually running in Mindfloor. This is a run.
Yes. She's running Mindfloor for sure.
Yeah. Yes.
Mindfloor wouldn't have its name if it wasn't for her. We didn't think about that. We had all
Yes.
other things going on. But
Yes,
anyway,
yes.
we are at that point. I am really sorry, everyone. Please share this out. Let your friends and family know we're here. And we will be back on Monday, same time, same channel, the Mindfloor Group.
But
And-
new thoughts.
But new
Yes.
thoughts, right?
And we had actually something to discuss. We'll start it on Monday. Death.
What?
The death.
The
Yes.
tech,
That was yesterday's keynote at the last. That what is death? Because
Yes.
death is a very interesting topic. It is a very interesting topic.
but you
If
know,
one can understand death properly, he will able to live properly.
And the
This-
question was, where is the energy going when you die?
Yes.
I'm
We'll
glad
start
you
from
guys
this.
remember. It feels like a year ago.
I just remembered it.
Okay, with that, we
Okay.
are going to wave goodbye and a little laughter. I know, Kamran, you'd rather
Thank
music.
you. I was laughing today.